My favorite teacher was Miss Whalen, Linda Whalen, my second grade teacher.
My favorite teacher was my sixth grade teacher, Judy Trost. She was my favorite because she made every student believe that they could do anything that they set their minds to, whether they were a gifted child or a not so gifted child.
My favorite teacher was Mrs. Perry, my first grade teacher.
Miss Delrosia's because she's really nice and she was there for me when I needed her.
Mr. Smith was my favorite because he always seemed to take time for me and make me feel like I was important in his class, and always
Renee Pagano. She was my home ec teacher in high school, and I learned a lot from her. She's an awesome teacher all the way.
Mrs. Burns, she was an older lady. She was our home ec teacher in high school, and she just taught us all kinds of things. She was like a grandma. She taught us how to cook.
Mrs. Young, I would have to say, was one of my favorite teachers.
High school was Mrs. Riffle. Same thing, very compassionate. A lot of good high school teachers, but Mrs. Riffle stands out as one of my favorites.
My favorite teacher of all time would most likely have to be Mrs. Betty Schultz, because Mrs. Betty Schultz taught me how to type. She was also my softball coach and a friend, and she is currently an adult friend of mine, so she has to be my favorite of all time.
To pick one would be difficult, but the one that sticks out in my mind is my choir teacher, Mr. Graff, because he caught me not being very nice to my best friend, and he made us the best friends we are today.
My favorite teacher was my kindergarten teacher, Miss Penny Baker, and she was my favorite because she was so caring. I just remember that it wasn't like even going to school. It was just we came, we learned, it was fun. I remember a lot of things about kindergarten, and I know most people do not. I even remember specific activities that we did, and I'm still in touch with her today.
Teacher of all time. I didn't go to school here, so.
Jeannie Jeans, because it was when we were at, when Powell Library was the school still.
I would say my first grade teacher, Mrs. Evelyn Heckler, because she was very grandmotherly and she really took time to make sure that I was learning.
My favorite teacher was Mrs. Harris. She was my fourth grade teacher in Virginia, Lake Ridge Elementary. And I don't know why she was my favorite, other than I guess I enjoyed her class, but what I remember most is she had a watch without numbers, and I was fascinated that she could tell time without numbers.
Probably the one that I first realized how much time and effort a teacher put in was Mr. Mike Woods, science teacher in 7th grade, because I fear snakes and needles, and Mr. Woods taught us how plasma can separate from blood, and I noticed he had a bandage on his arm, and he took his own blood just to show us how to extract plasma from blood, and I thought, wow, the dedication to do that, because there's no way I would stick my arm with a needle for blood for kids.
You still.
Quickly recalled Mrs. Young's name, and I remember one of my favorite teachers' names, but who will remember your name as a teacher here at Lincoln County R3?